Good evening, everybody. We will be starting shortly. Could everybody please take your seats? We'll be beginning in just a minute. Thank you.
This is for late.
If Tolworth members would like to take their seats. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to this evening's meeting of the Surbiton Neighbourhood Committee at Glenmore House. Particularly warm welcome to those members of the public who joined us tonight. So I'm Councillor Tom Reeve, and I'm chairing this meeting. In the event of an emergency and the sounding of an alarm, the emergency evacuation procedure is to leave the hall by the fire exit, the one behind you, and congregate in the car park. Anyone requiring assistance should remain in their seats, and you'll be assisted from the building. Anybody who wishes to follow the agenda from their tablet or smartphone can do so by going to the council's website and following the links to your council and council meeting calendar. This meeting is being filmed for live broadcast on the council's YouTube channel, and an archive version will be available to view on the channel after the meeting finishes. The broadcast will be suspended during any adjournments in proceedings, and if the committee resolves to consider information as exempt business. Members are reminded that microphones must be switched on and spoken into clearly for the broadcast. So please, can everyone present in the meeting also ensure that their mobile phones are switched off or in silent mode for the duration of this meeting. Thank you. So I'd like to remind members of the public who wish to comment on agenda items tonight, including the antisocial behaviour update and the Browns Road area permit parking review, that if you'd like to speak, please complete a green slip and pass it to our Democratic Services Officer who's sitting here on my left. So I'll start by inviting members to introduce themselves, and I suppose I'll start to my right, please.
Good evening, my name's Jackie Davis and I'm a ward councillor for Berrylands.
I'm Councillor Peter Hurling and I'm ward representative for Alexander Ward.
Hello, good evening. I'm Anita Sharper. I'm representing Berrylands Ward.
Good evening, I'm Councillor Amir Ali Khan. I'm Councillor for Surbiton Hill.
Good evening, I'm Councillor Alison Holt and I represent Surbiton Hill Ward.
Hello, good evening. I'm Councillor Yogan Jogannathan St. Martin, Seething Ward, please.
Oh, we'll ask officers to introduce themselves when their agenda items come up. Thank you. And going down to the end of the table there, please.
Thank you. Marianne Gonsalves from Tolworth.
Councillor Tate Allen from Tolworth Ward.
Andrew Waldridge from Tolworth Ward.
Okay. Oh, and we have would you care to introduce yourself?
Ian Manders, one of the Alexandra Ward councillors.
Right. Thank you, Councillor Manders. So, That's everyone. Moving on, we have a period of no more than 30 minutes for questions on matters relevant to the committee. We'd like to encourage questions to be submitted in advance so that officers have an opportunity to answer them, although that's not absolutely necessary. I understand we have questions this evening, and I'll invite each person to ask one question, and you'll be given the opportunity to ask a supplementary question if appropriate. Any subsequent questions you may have will be considered only after all of the residents have had the opportunity to ask their first questions, if time permits. So I ask people to please be as concise as possible, and please keep your question under 2 minutes. If you wish to preface the question with a statement, please be brief and to the point. Herman will inform you when 30 seconds are left and when time is up. Okay, right, okay. So Herman informs me that we have, we've received 2 green slips with questions. They, however, they relate to the agenda items. So if that's okay with, the residents in question, Graham and Marcus, if that's okay with you, we'll take those items, your questions with those agendas items, if that's okay. So thank you, Herman, for that. And so we then move on to questions, and we have questions from Liz Mitchell and Simon Laycock. If you'd like to come to the table, please. And yes, well, you know how this works. So
thank you. Thank you, Chair.
After you.
Thank you, Chair. In March 2024, this committee approved measures for Thornhill Road and Tolworth Road. It's now October, and one of the 5 measures have been completed. At the last Surbiton Neighbourhood Committee meeting on the 10th of September, we asked for an update on the other measures. At a meeting with you, Councillor Reeve, on the 11th of September, you said you would get us an update from RBK Highways team within 10 working days. Sure enough, 10 working days later, we did receive an update but it did not address any of the timing associated with these measures. And now here we are back again at a Surbiton Neighbourhood Committee, and thank you, Councillor Reeve, for the update that you've just handed us. In regards to timing, that update again referred to as soon as possible. It also referred to needing an electrical contractor, and I didn't know 7 months was needed to organise that, but we've got as soon as possible and still no definitive dates. I'm really keen to know, councillors, and particularly Councillor Reeve, are you and other councillors happy with the service you are getting from RBK?
Right. Well, thank you, Liz. I would just ask, ask Eunice Hamadi. Are you? Yeah. If it may perhaps to just explain the reason for the delay in the, I think, or where we are with those current items on the list.
Thank you, Chair. Since March, we were working on the design details of the 2 entry treatment, but in the same time, we start talking to the contractor in order to purchase 4 SID and number of sensors, and these sensors in order to measure the surveys and the speed or the traffic count on Tolworth area. So I'm afraid there's been a bit of delay because we were working on the delivery of the last year, the LIP scheme. So my team was very busy on that. So however, we pushed and we asked for it. We received the SID, but unfortunately, the socket, it hasn't been installed. So we'll be waiting for the electrical connection to take place. Regarding the sensors are up, but they are not operational because we are waiting for the electrical connection to take place. So there is both, I mean, the SID, we have them, and I had to put them somewhere else for now, a different location, but will be removed in order to provide them where it should be, which in Talbot area. And with the sensors, it's like I said, they are up, but still waiting for the electrical connection. And I'm afraid we have, my colleague have a big list. I'm not going to defend my colleague why the delay, but as I understand, we are changing a lot of lighting column in the borough. So as a result, there is a bit of backlog, and I guess that could be the reason for the delay regarding these two. The last bit is about the slow road marking. The slow road marking, it has been given to me that the plan, and I was planning to share it with the members in order to agree that is the location. Currently, they put too many slow road marking, and the total cost of those become to £16,000. So therefore, we are looking into it. Do we want to introduce those, all of them, or do we want to reduce the number in order to put wherever we can afford? So therefore, I'm just delaying it a bit longer in order to discuss with the ward member with the list of area where can we reduce the number of the slow marking. Then if it's okay, the plan is ready to go to the contractor and they will do it with the permitting. I'm really sorry for the delay, but I'm afraid there is nothing else I can add.
Right, okay. Well, thank you very much, Eunice. Yeah, I mean, given the amount of things that are taking place within the highways and the various other issues that, and that have come up, I'm satisfied, I'm not happy with the progress. I don't think you are either, but I think we understand and accept the reasons why that is the case. So, did you wish to come back on that? Yes.
I think it is very important to members. I'm sorry, I'm not trying to win here, but my team look after the full neighbourhood, and you can envisage how many schemes we have, and I have only one senior and 2 engineers, and only us who deliver the full neighbourhood. So you can appreciate the workload we have. And I'm not saying that's an excuse, but it is something we are under a lot of pressure to deliver some of the project, which it need to be delivered before where there is road safety related to. So we try to put the scheme based on the need before it is, if it is, delay or not delay. I'm sorry if that answers the question.
Yes, that does. And I think I have an appreciation of the challenges that are being faced by the highways team. And the also, within the current, the council's current budget envelope, the what's possible and what's not. This isn't necessarily going to affect timelines for how things are done. And well, it doesn't give me any pleasure to say that. I understand the reasons for it, and I accept your explanation for that. Okay, thank you. Sorry, I misunderstood. I thought Councillor Waldridge wanted to ask a question. So, did you have a supplementary question?
On Wednesday, the 11th of September, we had a meeting with yourself, Councillor Reeve, and at that meeting I expressed to you my concerns about residents being ignored and being treated with contempt by the RBK Highways team. I cited a recent example where we gave 6 pages of suggestions for measures on our roads to RBK, and it took several emails to get even an acknowledgement of that email and the 6 pages and the work that went into that. I might add these recommendations have still been ignored, At that meeting, I was explaining to you that I had some concerns about the eastbound traffic in the Tolworth ward, which could be impacted if there were any mitigations employed on the A3 Fullers Way North junction. You suggested to me that I email RBK Highways team and explain my concerns. My response to you, you may recall, was that it would get ignored, and I really didn't want to get ignored again, but I thought, no, it's the right thing to do, I should. So despite my reservations, I did email the Highways team on the 14th of September. I copied you and other councillors into that email and sent a follow-up email to yourselves and other councillors asking for your assistance in, one, reinforcing that point to the RBK Highways team, and two, pointing out that an acknowledgement to my email would be really nice. To date, I have not received any response from anyone, including councillors, nor the Highways team, and it's been nearly a month. Am I to assume that, firstly, that neither you nor other councillors copied into my email have followed up with RBK, and secondly, that that you are, again, happy with and satisfied with the service and responsiveness of the RBK Highways team?
Thank you. Thank you for your question. I would probably just say that we've come back to you on numerous occasions with answers to many questions over a period of time, you know, you've had answers from various councillors, you've had answers from Highways. I don't think that you could, by any stretch of the imagination, say that you've been ignored by councillors on the basis that you don't get a reply to a couple of emails out of, I dare say, dozens or even hundreds of emails that we've received from you about this issue, about this area. So I think your concerns are well known, and we have been addressing them, or the council has been addressing them, and we as councillors have been have been monitoring what the Highways team does and the responses that you get, and what they say, and we are making progress. The council is making progress on these matters, but it's just not as fast as you would like it to be. So I'm afraid that's all I can really say at this point. Progress has been made, and things that we have said that were going to be done have been done, and other things that other things are in progress. So thank you very much, and okay, and Councillor Wooldridge would like to come on at this point too, please.
Is this working? Yes, it is. Good. Yeah, hi, Liz. I mean, we do engage with the Highways team. There is a process. The process is with the chair. It's then with the portfolio, and it's with Highways. So we do, you know, we engage with the departments. Nothing is perfect. It's just good. You know, we ensure, as your local ward residents, councillors for the residents, that your voices are heard. You have a great voice. You're a great advocate for your road, and it will be acted upon. But it'll be acted upon the time constraints that this council currently has. It's been partly explained by Eunice, and these issues are raised and they're at the appropriate levels within the council. That would be our statement on it. Do you have anything else to add, colleagues? No, that's it. It's rather dry, but it's accurate summary of events.
Thank you, Councillor Wooldridge. And Simon Laycock. Your question, please.
Thank you, Chair. I'm sorry I haven't submitted the question in advance, but you'll find it a lot easier to answer, I think. Given the Council's policies to promote active travel and the fact that some quarter to a third of rush hour traffic is made up of the school run, will this committee consider the upgrading of routes suitable for walking and cycling near schools to encourage at least some school students to change mode to get to and from school? There are possible upgrades which are relatively simple and cost-effective. Tolworth Girls' School, for which I'm particularly concerned, is probably the most unfortunately sited school in the borough, squeezed between two main roads, but there are ways of accessing it from nearby side streets and paths. From the Kent Way direction, there are poorly maintained paths on which there are metal barriers and no cycling signs. My understanding, which is obviously not conclusive, is that these barriers are no longer compliant with disability access legislation and are probably illegal. Despite being signed as a cycle route to Hook and Chessington, the path has no cycling signs. These are, in any case, effectively useless because they're not enforced. From Hook Rise North, there is a path that can be massively improved by installing a dedicated cycle lane
30 seconds.
And wider pavements with Copenhagen crossings. Will councillors and or members of the Highways team be willing to join me for a site visit where I can show you the current problems and the possible solutions? Thank you.
Right. Thank you very much for that question. I would, that's in the Tolworth ward, if I'm not mistaken. So I would want to ask if, I'll come to the Tolworth councillors I'll come to you in a moment, Councillor Waldridge. I would be happy to join on a site visit and to see these issues. We are, the council is, has a program of putting in school street schemes. So we, so far, I can't remember how many we've put in around the borough so far, but we are committed to school street schemes to mitigate traffic flow in front of schools. So yes, we are concerned about access, safe access to schools, and encouraging active transport. Yes, and I'll come to you. I'll come to you in a moment, Councillor Davis. And so I would just say that yes, I would be happy to come and have a look as you raise some important concerns about cycleways. So I'll go to Councillor Waldridge, and then I'll go to Councillor Davis. Councillor Waldridge.
Hello. Oh, that's working. So I hate people who do that. Really very annoying. Yes, we've just looked at it on Google Maps. You're absolutely right. It does say no cycling. Not sure if it's a cycling path, but absolutely we should explore all these avenues of ingress and egress for schools. So most certainly we're very happy to join you. Yep.
Thank you, Councillor Waldridge. And Councillor Davis?
I was going to say me too. I spent the last 10 years of my teaching career promoting active travel in schools, so I'd love to come on a site visit. Thank you.
Okay, well, I think that was a yes, and a yes. So do you have a supplementary question? Oh,
there may be a legal question about these pathways, and one of the access paths from Kent Way to Fuller's Way North is the back of the shops. Now, I don't know who owns that, whether you own it or not, but you light it. There are 2 council lights on that path.
Well, I think we would definitely... Oh, sorry, can I come in and answer the question? Yeah, I think that's, you raise an important concern. We would invite the Highways team to come and join us. Yeah, well, I think we'll definitely, for something like this, we'll definitely try and get them out, and we'll have a look at it. And so we need to liaise after this meeting and set up a meeting time. But thank you very much for your question.
Okay.
Can I ask Right, okay. Could I ask Graham Hare? Was Graham, oh, there you go. Okay. I was wondering if you were still here. Yeah.
Yes, so
Okay. Sorry, could I just clarify? Did you say somebody else was going to ask the question?
Yes, Mrs. Golding is now here to ask Mr. Matthews' question. So still have a question.
Oh, yeah, thank you.
Sorry for the confusion.
Right. Well, welcome. And yes, your question, please.
Right. Well, I was going to ask about the King Charles Road barrier and my petition that in 10 days will reach its first birthday. I wanted to know where it was going, what was happening, but just before the meeting, Mr. Reeve advised me that this now is, in fact, going to Place Committee rather than this committee and will be heard on the 12th of November. So, if I may, I have a different question. Okay.
By all means.
Yep. So, I feel for poor old Eunice, everything stops at the door of Highways team. My question is related to this, but I think it's pretty clear to everybody in the room that the resources they've got mean that they can't fulfill their purpose. It's not fit for purpose. They need more people, otherwise everything is just going to snowball, which is what we're seeing now. My question is, I've been asking for the June survey data that's been taken in Berrylands for months now, and I've been consistently told it's not ready for publication. I understand that time might be taken to analyse the data. I'm not looking for analysis. Give me the raw data, give me the spreadsheets, that's all I want, the basic data. I'll take a look, make my own decisions upon it, but I'd like that data. It's now been, 4 months since that survey was done? Where is that data? Why can't I have it?
Okay. Thank you very much, Mr. Hare. And can I refer this question to Eunice, please? Okay. I'm sorry, Mr. Hare, if you could address your questions through the chair, please. Thank you. Yes, Eunice.
Thank you, Chair. Mr. Dare, yes, he did ask for the raw data. And as we haven't verified if the raw data is acceptable by us or not, that's why we're not releasing it yet. Till we are satisfied what we have, it is something we can base on our study. So the question is, when we are satisfied the data we have, it is valid, then we are happy to share it with Mr. Dare as quickly as possible.
Okay, and do you have an idea of when that might be? Can we give Mr.
At the
Hare
end
an idea?
of the month.
I beg your pardon?
At the end of this month.
At the end of this month, okay. So in time for the, yeah, okay, that's fine, end of this month. Right, and did you have a supplementary question?
I do, based upon that. What's involved in the verification process? Why is it so difficult? What is involved in making sure that the data is complete? It doesn't sound like rocket science to me.
Okay, and would you like to address that, Ms.
Thank you, Chair.
Eunice?
The data we receive, we need to be satisfied it does present correct measurement or it has been done correctly. So if there is any corrupted data in the data which has been done, so we need to say this data is not valid anymore and we can't use it. Till we are satisfied all the information provided are valid and could be used, then that is when we're going to use it in order to analyze our surveys. Then we can share with Mr. Dare the data, feeling it is the same data, because what we're going to use in our analysis when we bring the report to this committee in the 12th of November to consider the petition received.
Okay, thank you, Eunice. Thank you, Graham. And I'll move on to our next question.
Right, so end of the month then.
Okay, thank you. Sorry. Yeah, yeah, I just wanted to make sure we didn't. Yes, Mrs. Golding, would you like to come forward? Thank you very much. Thank you for coming to the committee to ask a question. As we said, you have up to 2 minutes to ask a question, and Herman will give you a 30-second warning when the time is nearly up.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. I'm part of the group that set up the petition to have the barrier removed, and the Berrylands Coordination Group. Majid Mafi is one of my colleagues, along with Graham and Leo, who is here. Majid has produced this question, and as he's not able to come tonight, I've agreed to read it for him. 4 years after the King Charles Road barrier closure installation, how much money has been spent in total from its conception to date, including its implementation, construction, surveys, and human resources? 4 years on, with one of the most prominent resident petitions in the history of RBK, with 2,300 signatures against the closure of King Charles Road, does the majority of the Surbiton Neighbourhood Committee still believe that it's been money well spent, and has it benefited the majority of the residents in Berrylands? That's his question.
Okay, well, thank you. Thank you for your question, Mrs. Golding. So there's really sort of two questions in one here. Taking the first part, I want to ask Eunice if he would be able to tell us this, but I suspect the answer might be that that he might need to go and look this up. But could you confirm that for me?
Thank you, Chair. If you look to the element of this question, first bit is about how much the road closure cost at the LTN. Then the second bit is about how much the survey before it cost us. Then how much the second survey we've done after the scheme been implemented, and how much the third survey has been done, and how much the fourth survey has been done, and how much resources from staff. All of that, they do count. And actually, by receiving more question as well, let me go back again and do more works about that. So I'm afraid I don't have all the hours here to calculate how much human resources were being spent on that, but I'm happy to look into. I can only answer the bit which is related to the cost of the construction and the surveys. The others is going to be a bit difficult for me to find how many hours we do spend, unless you want to give you roughly estimate as a part of that.
Okay, all right. You could, but you're not able to provide that information tonight, I assume.
No, I'm afraid so. I do not.
Right. So we'd have to take that question away and come back to you, Mrs. Golding. That would be in relation to how much was spent on basically the physical work of installing the barrier, plus the surveys and studies that were done before it was put in. But as for the human resources, that would be difficult. It would be very, very time consuming to do. The second part of your question, we're not had to do with whether the majority of the committee still believe it was money well spent. Well, that's not we don't go into debates or votes during question time, with residents. We only do that when we're considering the business of the committee. So we wouldn't be able to answer that question for you. But you can go and individually speak to councillors if you wish. So did you have a supplementary question related to the first part of the question?
I'm astounded that you don't know how much this has cost. You know, this is residents' money that's been spent over how many surveys? How many surveys do you need to have? That's not a question, by the way. Well, it could be a question. But how many surveys do you need to have when you've got a petition that includes 2,300 residents wanting rid of the barrier? Is that not more important than going after survey after survey after survey, presumably until you get the data that you want? You should know, I think, that you should know, any business, any private business would know how much surveys are costing.
Okay, well,
and
thank you. Thank you.
You don't.
Okay, well, thank you. Thank you very much. There's a lot in that. It was. I'll take the question. I'll take the question part of it first, and then Councillor Manders also wanted to come in on this. All I would say is that the council does know how much it spent on it, but just because Mr. Hamadi, Yunus Hamadi, doesn't have that to his fingertips right now, doesn't mean that we don't know the answer. It would be like asking you how much you spent on cheese last month. You would be able to find out if you wanted to, but but you would have to go back and look at your bills, which is exactly what Yunus would do in this case. So we can find out the answer. We can get back to you on that, and we will do so. But thank you. And I believe Councillor Manders wanted to come in on this too.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I mean, I'd also like to point out there are other petitions around, you know, with a different view from the one that mentioned by the lady. But the main point I wanted to make was about the need for surveys. The reality is that traffic movements have changed over the last few years. We had a period of COVID where there was a substantial reduction in traffic. We've had the bounce back from traffic since COVID. We've also had the effects of the major works on the Tolworth roundabout done by Transport for London. And, you know, what we've been trying to do is to get before and after snapshots from that. So that's the reason why there has to be, you know, surveys over time, is because traffic movements change. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, well, thank you, Councillor Manders, and thank you for asking your question, Mrs. Golding, on behalf of Mr. Murphy. And I would, that's the end of that question. Do we have... Okay, right. That concludes the 30 minutes that we had for question time in this meeting. I'd just like to thank people. Thank you for asking your questions, taking the time to come to the committee. And we'll now move on to, bear with me a second. Right. All right. So now move on to we have no notice of intention to submit any petitions tonight. So we'll move on to apologies for absence. And so do we have any apologies for absence?
Thank you, Chair. Apologies have been received from Councillor Diane White.
Okay, thank you. Yes, and...
I gave apologies for lateness, although I'm here by the time you've done this, but I was on a mayoral engagement before now.
Okay.
Just what it meant is I didn't just turn up randomly late.
Yes.
Okay, good point. And we hope the mayoral duties went well, Councillor Green. Right, so moving on to declarations of interest. So members are asked to declare any disclosable pecuniary interest or any registrable or non-registrable interest relevant to items on this agenda. So to begin with, I'll start by saying that I declare a non-registrable interest in relation to the consideration of agenda item 8, which is the Browns Road area permit parking area review, as I live in the area covered by the scheme. So I will be leaving the meeting for that agenda item, and that will be chaired by our Vice Chair, Councillor Davis, for that item. So do any other members have declarations of interest tonight? And I'll start with Councillor Schapper and then Councillor Davis. Anyone else?
Thank you, Chair. Yes, just wanted to say that as a member of the British Legion, it's probably a non-registrable, if I can pronounce it correctly, interest rather than a non-pecuniary interest. But I thought perhaps, Herman, you might be able to advise on that. But it's just to say that I probably would be happy to step outside during that if I needed to. Otherwise, I'd be happy to stay. I mean, it's...
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Schapper. Herman, is a member of the British Legion considering the application for musical instruments for the... What's your view on that?
Thank you, Chair. Fortunately, I've been informed by other members, which I therefore have considered the situation. My understanding is that you're being an ordinary member of the British Legion, you are not involved in the management or the direct relation with the for example, if you are a director of British Legion, then I would be in a position to advise that you may consider to excuse yourself. But taking into account that if members are only an ordinary member of the British Legion, I would advise. But of course, it's subject to your final decision. Is that you could probably stay, but it's stay for the debate and voting. But it's very welcome for you to declare it in terms of openness and transparency, and I will minute that in the minutes. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you, Herman. And Councillor Davis?
Yeah. Likewise, I like to think I'm a member of the British Legion, but I think my membership has actually lapsed at the moment. But I have no responsibilities or pecuniary or other interests in it.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Councillor Davis. Any other registrable and declarations of interest tonight? Okay, thank you very much, councillors. We'll then move on to the minutes. So the confirmation of minutes of the meeting held on the 10th of September will be deferred to the next meeting as they haven't been published yet. It was due to the modern.gov system for publication of committee documents being down due to the ongoing power fault at the Guildhall complex. So there have been a lot of systems that have been unavailable as a result of that, and this is another one. So that will be available. We'll consider those minutes at the next meeting. So I'll move now on to item 6, which is the antisocial behaviour update. The Council's Community Safety and Resilience team has been invited to provide semi-annual updates to the Committee on Antisocial Behaviour. And I'd like to invite Steph Royston-Mitchell, the Community Safety and Resilience Principal, and Linneke Eleveld, the Community Safety Officer, to present an update to members. I believe we have some slides. Oh, there we go. Yes. So over to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. So, yes, we're presenting on antisocial behaviour data. So it's been produced for Surbiton Neighbourhood Committee. We've presented at the other 3 committees as well. We've asked that it's not circulated or content extracted, and the only reason for that is that if you take a small piece of data without context, it can kind of give a negative message where actually sometimes it's quite positive. So there's nothing kind of underlying around that, but if people want to discuss that, we have put contact details on. So just as an introduction, it provides an overview of some of the work that we do in the council to tackle antisocial behaviour, and provides an update on the different types of antisocial behaviour reported to the council. So although I'm from the community safety team, as Linneke is, we are presenting on behalf of other teams in the council that deal with certain types of antisocial behaviour. So it includes council housing reports made to our landlord services for our council housing tenants, reports directly to the community safety team through our website online reporting or other methods through elected members. Reports made to regulatory services, and you'll see the different categories when Lineker presents the data, and reports made to the council relating to fly tipping. So we've tried to make it as comprehensive as possible. It does not include antisocial behaviour reports made to the police, but you'll see as we go through the presentation, there's really close partnership working with the police, and that might be something that we want to consider going forward. Presentations for information only as well, so there's no debate or decision making. So I've just put a kind of definition of antisocial behaviour. It's very broad, it's the government definition, and it's behaviour that causes harassment, alarm or distress to other people. So it's quite challenging sometimes because the category is quite broad, but we only have certain powers along with the police to deal with some issues. But there's some examples there, both criminal and non-criminal. So it could be threatening, harassing or abusive behaviour. It could be noise nuisance, vandalism, graffiti and fly posting, fly tipping and dump rubbish, abandoned vehicles and misuse of public space. So things like our green spaces. And as I've said, the police, council and social housing landlords also work really closely together to try and deal with any antisocial behaviour. So I guess what does the council do? Not everyone knows what we do, which is why I think we've been asked to present tonight. So we do an awful lot. So my team, community safety, we do everything from sort of prevention through to casework with victims, tackling perpetrators and carrying out enforcement initiatives. So things like awareness raising, we have an Antisocial Behaviour Awareness Week and community events, so we try and get out and chat to people. We do community engagement initiatives, so that might be walking around a local area with residents, elected members and police. We try and provide lots of options to report different types of antisocial behaviour, but we're always keen to learn and hear more about how we could improve that. And then working with our partners, so we've got Lineker chairs an antisocial behaviour partnership board, so that brings all partners together to look at how we can kind of maybe improve things and work better together. We've also got a multi-agency risk assessment conference, which is for really complex cases. So I co-chair that with one of our police inspectors, and indeed we had one of those meetings today. So that looks at those really complex cases where we've got mental health, substance misuse, a whole range of different issues which needs that partnership response. And just to say, we always look through a contextual safeguarding lens, because quite often what appears to be antisocial behaviour, particularly in open spaces, sometimes have safeguarding concerns about our children that are in those spaces. So we always work with our children's services as well. We coordinate antisocial behaviour case reviews, so that's a statutory requirement that the council carries out. And that's where if a victim's not happy with the response that they've had in relation to any antisocial behaviour, we will conduct an independent case review looking at kind of what action's been taken and really trying to find some outcomes to improve that, the response to the victim. We're really proud we've achieved the ASB pledge this year, and that's with an organisation called it's called ASB Help. I'm trying not to use acronyms, but they are called ASB Help. And that's really about best practice and evidencing our commitment to victims, which we're really proud of. There's loads more information on our web pages, so please do take a look if you want to find out more. And this is just an example of a leaflet that we've produced. So this is trying to help people understand where they report to the different types of antisocial behaviour. It just means that if it goes to the right place, it's often quicker for us to respond. If it doesn't go to the right place, we do work together and we do make sure that it goes to the right team. But it's just really to help people understand where they might report the different types. And we do have some leaflets, and I know people have asked for those to be put in kind of notice boards. So we can do that if it's of interest. I think I'm handing over to Lineker.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I will continue with the data. I was meant to bring the leaflets with me. I just live around the corner, so I'll bring them before the end of the meeting because they're on my table. I know exactly where I've left them. So I'll make sure there is some available for you to take home as well. So we have the antisocial behaviour reports that are from housing and community safety. They are broken down into 11 categories. So we have neighbour disputes, drug use and drug dealing, antisocial behaviour associated with rough sleeping. I don't get the words out today. So just to note that rough sleeping itself is not antisocial behaviour, but sometimes there's antisocial behaviour associated with rough sleeping. So we have quite a comprehensive response towards rough sleeping and antisocial behaviour associated with it, which is a combination of enforcement and support. Antisocial street drinking, we have vandalism. Pets and animal antisocial behaviour, that is mainly things like dogs barking for a long time, causing antisocial behaviour, and that's the main kind of type of pets, animal antisocial behaviour that we have. We have hate crimes, unauthorised encampments, prostitution, vehicle nuisance, and then we made a category of other, which is public space misuse, verbal abuse, and intimidation and harassment, all grouped together. So if we go to the data between June and August, June 23 and August 24, Borough-wide we had 237 cases, whereas there's still 16 of those cases open, so some more complex cases that take longer to be resolved. And in Surbiton we had 56 cases, so that means that 24% of the reports are related to Surbiton Neighbourhood. Well, it's 1 in 4 neighbourhoods, so that's about a quarter of the report, so seems about right. So we have here the reports by ward. Just to note, I got a note that Alexandra ward is not on there. But that is because there is no antisocial behaviour reported from Alexandra ward in that whole year. So that is why it's missing. So we didn't leave it out, I double-checked it.
We should have maybe put a league table.
Yeah. So from the table here, this is the wards across the whole borough. You see Kingston Town on the top. Quite substantially. Kingston Town, we have a nighttime economy and quite a lot of visitors, so that is always going to be kind of like a hotspot for antisocial behaviour, so to say. You can have a peek at your wards to see how many reports you have compared to other wards. Just to note, it really depends on people reporting to us. Some antisocial behaviour gets reported to the police, that's not included in this data. Some antisocial behaviour doesn't get reported at all. So it's never a complete picture, but it's an idea to see what we get as a council. Then we have per category, so you can see that across the whole borough and also in Surbiton neighbourhood, that neighbour disputes is on the top, so the highest category, and then drugs is on second, and then we have like ASB other, both borough-wide and in Surbiton. Yeah, those are the largest categories that we deal with community safety and housing departments. You can see here the over time, kind of the timeline of antisocial behaviour reports. Also to note that May 24 is the last kind of like month that is on here. It is reported until, it's recorded until August, but we don't have reports between kind of like June and August. So that's why it's missing on this slide. So yeah, May or the last report. Some of those reports might still be open, so it doesn't mean that there is nothing that we're dealing with across the neighbourhood, but it just means we haven't gotten any new reports in over that timeline. You can see sometimes a little bit kind of peaks. For example, in January you saw a peak in neighbour disputes, and in May you saw a peak in drug issues reported. But it should just be noted that it's a small amount of cases, so the graph is only going up to 5 cases. So sometimes we get 2 reports in that month, and that shows a peak in the graph, but it's not substantial enough to see kind of trends over time. Just a summary, so 24% of the total ASB cases are from Surbiton. We always encourage reporting. As I said, like a lot of antisocial behaviour is massively underreported, sometimes because people accept that it's there and don't respond to it, or don't know where to report. So that is also why we're here and presenting tonight and doing all the engagement work to make sure that people know where to search, get that support, and also to report it. sometimes we can't do something straight away, but that doesn't mean the report is not useful, because sometimes we see a trend in certain neighbourhoods, several reports about similar issues, and that shows us really that we need to put more resources there. So every report is really useful for us. The main reports are drugs and neighbourhood disputes. We don't see a clear trend over time. That's also because of the limited amount of cases that we get over the year. And also the repeat cases are not excluded. So it could be that, like that peak in, for example, in January and in May, could be that it's like one location that we get several reports for one location, for example. What do we do with those cases that we get? So we do case management and support for victims. So every case is being investigated. We involve our partners with it who needs to be involved, including the police, sometimes the youth service, also our rough sleepers outreach team, for example, gets involved if it's related to rough sleeping. And we work with a lot of different partners, mental health, substance misuse. So it really depends like what kind of issue it is. So it's thoroughly investigated, and we really focus on the support for victims as well. Like what can we really do to to help the victims of antisocial behavior and to resolve the issues. Second point around multi-agency approach I already addressed, and also the actions taken against perpetrators. So it's also really important that we look at the antisocial behavior legislation and what we can do to put enforcement in place, but sometimes also to put support in place for perpetrators that might reduce that antisocial behavior. We share intelligence and meetings with key stakeholders to inform that partnership response. Really important that we share that with the police and with other partners, which locations we have issues and what is happening, so that we can all respond to that. And Steph already mentioned the community multi-agency risk management conference, which is really focused on the complex cases, where we need all partners around the table, and that conference is really only the complex cases being referred to that. So projects and activities in your area. We have the Talbot Broadway multi-agency meeting that happened for a while, has been closed now because some of the actions have been undertaken and it was a bit quiet. Some issues have come up again, so we might start that again. But that was with Alexandra and Talbot, Safe Neighbourhood team also involved. We did site visit to fish ponds because of concerns in that area. We are supporting housing around issues related to housing of multiple occupations. And we had the multi-agency meeting for the Alpha Road estate. So a few issues came up about the Alpha Road estate. We held a meeting with all the stakeholders involved, and we will repeat that as well. We have attendance at the Surbiton Hill Police Ward panel meeting, and also ASB response to locations. So we had Grove Road footpath and the Boots alleyway in Victoria Road, as well as locations that there were some issues. And the Achieving for Children is doing outreach work in Victoria Park as well. So now I'm going to present on behalf of other teams. So this is for regulatory services. The environmental health team leads on the response of these cases. The complaints were into 6 categories: abandoned vehicles, noise nuisance, bonfires, rubbish, licensed premises, and fixed penalty notices issued for fly tipping. So this data is from July 2023 to August 2024. So you can see here the Borough total and from Surbiton Neighbourhood. So you can see that abandoned vehicles were 1,115 across the Borough in that year. And then abandoned vehicles in Surbiton are 245 of the cases. So noise is higher in Surbiton compared to Borough-wide, the reports that come into regulatory services. So you can just see a little bit of an overview. So we can see here over the data over time. So the ASB reports per month, you can see that July and August there's an increase in reports. And these are a higher number of reports, so we can here clearly see a trend from the summer months. being busier, and there's more noise because people are more outside, people have their windows open, people hear more, so those reports go up. And then fly tipping has also gone up in 2024, as we can see. Then we have per ward, and also per ward and per categories. You can have a peek at your ward. Again, Kingston Town is the largest ward for the this ASB data as well. You can see a bit of a difference between the different wards, what is reported. So when we look at regulatory services data, also 24% of total ASB reports are from Surbiton. So same, there's 4 neighbourhoods. So 24% seems about right. The main type of reports relate to noise and abandoned vehicles. That's Borough and in Surbiton the same. There is a higher, it says south of the Borough there. That's not correct. Apologies for that. I'm just realizing that now that I'm presenting it. Please ignore that for the sake of tonight. The noise reports increase in the summer, as we could see on the graphs, and the notes to make, even though the regulatory service has a higher amount of cases than we have in community safety and housing, it's still a small amount of cases to compare, and the repeat cases, again, are not excluded as well. Regulatory service is really a demand-led service, so they are really responding to what comes in. So if the report comes in, they respond to that. But there is not like proactive projects that we are doing, for example, with community engagement, etc. We go to the last one, which is around fly tipping. The corporate and commercial team leads on the response of those reports. And this data is for a longer period of time. So we have October 2020 to August 2024. And you can see an overview of the fly tip report. This is borough-wide, so this is not specific to the Surbiton neighbourhood. We can see a decrease over time in fly tipping reports. This can be positive, can be a negative. So the positive can be there is less fly tipping across the borough. That is what we'd like to hear, but it can also be because people report it less. So it's always like, we never know exactly what that data means. In any case, we always encourage people to report because, there's a lot of also fly tipping, but any antisocial behavior underreported. We can see here the fly tip reports per type. So a lot of fly tips are unidentified fly tips, so we don't know exactly what type that is. Then we have household waste and black bags from households, so the main categories that are being reported. And the other categories are smaller. This is, again, like borough-wide, what we see. And then per size, so the largest category is a small van load. And then we have the single black bag and a car boot or less. So as we can see is that we don't have a lot of fly tips that are large amounts. It's all smaller fly tips, but nevertheless impactful for communities. Again, we have fly tips per ward. So you can see here that Tudor is on the top. What we got the explanation last week in our neighbourhood committee meeting is because there is one councillor reporting a lot of fly tips in Tudor and going around and reporting every single thing they see. So this is how the data really impacts. Like if you have one person in your ward who is constantly reporting every single fly tip that is being visible, the amount of fly tips goes up in the data, but it doesn't mean that Tudor has more fly tips. It means that every single fly tip in Tudor might be reported. So I think there's always a learning there with data, and it's nice to get the explanation when we present, because reporting is so important to get an accurate picture of what is going on. Some initiatives relate to fly tipping. So there is the fly tipping task force, which focuses on the hotspots of fly tips and looking at camera deployment or other initiatives that they can do in those hotspots. There was also in 2022, Veolia launched Let's Scrap Fly Tipping campaign, and that's going to be repeated on the Sunray Estate and Cambridge Road Estate in 2025. So this is really around education and awareness raising around fly tipping, what it means, how to report it, where to get support. Also I want to make a mention about the neighbourhood rangers. So the rangers do incredible service across the borough. They also do a lot of picking up some of the fly tips and also litter picking. That's not included in the data, but it's still proactive work that happens across our borough. This is just an example of the Let's Scrap campaign and how it looks like just flyers across the community to raise that awareness and how to report it. And this is a staged fly tip on the town centre, which happened in 2022 during the campaign. So hopefully that comes back in 2025 with the campaign as well. Because we don't always, not everyone realizes what is actually a fly tip and what the impact is from actually adding something to already a pile of rubbish. People might think like, oh, there's already something there, so I can add my items there. But it piles up and has an impact on the people living there and the people passing there. Really important to raise that awareness. That's it from us, and we're open for questions as well.
Okay, well, thank you very much, Lineker and staff for the presentation. Do members of the committee have any questions or comments? So I see Councillor Schapper and Councillor Menders and Councillor Gonsalves. So starting with Councillor Schapper.
Thanks, Chair. Really interesting to look at the data. And just a couple of things. One was a question and comment together, really. I know there was the government was talking about new legislation on stalking. And I wondered if that had that come across your horizon in terms of whether that was a form of antisocial behaviour. Wasn't sure if that was in the pipeline or not. And the only other one was, the other question was question comment about the fly tipping, just looking at the rise. If you look at the August 23 to August 24, it was quite a notable increase. And I wondered if there'd been any, if that had, what that tells us basically, what's the data telling us, and whether you'd categorise the types of fly tip, whether there was any indication as to any narrative around that. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you, Councillor. And yes, over to you, please.
So on the stalking question, so my team also lead on domestic abuse and violence against women and girls. So the other members of my team kind of lead on that. But what I would say is all of our work, we cross over. So sometimes it's not straight cut, so the intimidation and harassment might be antisocial behaviour, but that's why I was saying we always look through that safeguarding lens as well. So I can't answer the question in terms of the legislation and our next steps, but I can come back to you on that after the meeting. It's a really good question, but I think people sometimes think it's one single thing, and what we see is sometimes hate crime and harassment, intimidation, which crosses over with domestic abuse. So that's where our kind of complex cases tend to go to our multi-agency risk assessment conference as well. But I will come back and clarify that bit. But I don't know if Lineker can answer because we're not from the fly tipping team, but we might need to take it away. But I'll let her come in.
Yeah, I just related to the stalking and harassment as well. So with the case management, when there is something that is a safeguarding concern, we also always make safeguarding referrals when that's the case. So sometimes, yes, some of our team work on it as well, but it's also really important that we get the safeguarding team involved as well on those cases. So we make those referrals when it's necessary and when that is involved. Related to the legislation, we will get back to you on that after the meeting. I just put up this slide because I assume you're referring to this slide and then the increase in October 2023.
I think it was the slide about from July 23 to August 24, and it was the regulatory services reports.
Oh, it's regulatory services.
Is it this one?
Just a reminder to members to use your microphone for the recording. Thank you very much.
It was just that is the slide. Yes, thank you.
And then you're referring to which month, sorry?
the noticeable increase from the year before, you know, in terms of if you look at the, unless that's how I've, if you look at the August 23 and then you look at the figure for noise and fly tipping, whether there was any correlation with the increase. Is it something completely separate that you're itemising, or is there a link in terms of it's such a huge increase compared to, but then I noticed from the year before it's almost non-existent, the numbers. Thank you.
Yeah, I will have to take that back to regulatory service team. Also, when we present it to other neighbourhood committees, it's not substantial difference. So I have to take that back to see what the explanation is. They didn't give us a narrative around this. Yeah, I'll write that down.
Okay, great. Okay, thank you. Thank you very much, Councillor Schapper. I think just in the interest of time, what we might do is just have questions and comments from all of the councillors, and then ask you to address all of them at the same time. So if I could, Councillor Manders, and then Councillor Gonsalves. So what we're going to do is just go around and ask comments and questions all together, and then maybe just ask you to sort of sum up for us at the end. So let's go ahead. So Councillor Manders, please, and then Councillor Gonsalves.
Thank you, Chair. I mean, I don't want to underestimate the effects and the misery on the local residents who are, as it were, the victims of these, some of which kind of border on crimes, but certainly, you know, they are a real nuisance at times. But the numbers are relatively small, really, against the population. I mean, Alexandra Ward has got about 4,000 electors, and clearly there's more people living there who aren't electors, you know, younger people and people not on the electoral roll. So the numbers are very, very small indeed. But that being said, when you do give your answers to the councillors, my interest really is whether there are a number of people involved, or a few people involved who are repeat offenders, or whether it's something which is just very, very widespread. And that may clearly depend on the category. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And Councillor Gonsalves.
Thank you, and thank you very much for the presentation. Very useful to see. I had a couple of questions about fly tipping that I realised I may not be able to answer because it's not your team. So on that slide, I was wondering if it's fly tipping. Sorry, those numbers, are they about fly tipping or fixed penalty notices issued? Because I wonder if that's why the increase is so big. Then on page 22, which shows the reports per ward, Jesus, let me just, sorry, my notes are on my phone, so okay, on page 22, fly tipping reports by wards, it's showing about 35 in Tolworth in 1 year, which I think is really low. Because like I had a look at my reports, and I reported 8 in the last 3 months, and I know Ty and Andrew are reporting several per week. So just wondering if that's definitely for the year or if it's for the quarter maybe. And then finally, I was going to ask if it's possible to get data maybe next time, or if it's readily available by email, to compare the number of fly tipping reports with the number of fixed penalty notices issued between the different wards, so we can see if there are any wards where people are not being caught, basically. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Councillor. And Councillor Tylan, and then Councillor Yoganathan, and then Councillor Waldridge.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, it's a good report. It's good to see all the figures. Like Councillor Gonsalves said, the figures for Tolworth, the fly tipping seems very low, because I report at least 3 or 4 a week, and there are the hotspots in the ward I normally go through, and I'll find fly tipping every time I go. So, and I've tried to talk to the team about putting cameras, but I know one place they're trying to, but because of the issue in finding because it's on a TfL road as well, this side, so they're finding it difficult to get power because they had to get permission from TfL. The scrap it banner, that seemed to work. I know they put it on one place for at least 2 or 3 months. There wasn't any fly tipping, but then once they removed it and started again. So I think that if we can put it at least every 6 months or so, just remind people, you know, so that will help. And the other issue is the private land. I know council can't clear it, but that's a big issue for the ward councillors. But recently, the enforcement team trying to get the landlords, the agents to clear the rubbish, and that helps. I think recently, I think the wise contractors now are very active, particularly in the Tolworth Broadway area. On the ASB, again, I think the Tolworth figures came high, I think mainly because of probably the Broadway. Tolworth Broadway is a continuous struggle. But I don't know what the council can do, provide mainly street ringing, rough sleeping, and intimidation and that kind of issues. One other thing on your report, the neighbour disputes was very high. I wonder what kind of disputes, because I know like noise, barbecue and things like that, that's a comment, but issues like access rights on the alleyway and things like that, I know the council always says it's a civil matter and then council can't take any action. But most of the issues I get is those kind of issues. So it'll be interesting to find out what kind of neighbour issues, why it's so high. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Jürgen-Nathan.
Yeah, I think excellent report. And since you can see, both of you are here, it's everybody talk about fly tipping. And I wanted to talk about the fly tipping because the fly tipping is a big problem. You know, I'm from this ward, down here, Victoria Road. And I know jolly well, if you know, we did have enforcement people go along and issue the things. I know it costs money, but it drops. And some of the issues is, I had to be careful not to name this person. They said they have got a mental problem. And that is, I can understand that. I am looking at the fly tipping teams to deal with us effectively, because most of the people, when they are looking at Surbiton or High Street or whatever it is, what they look at is fly tipping everywhere. And sometimes, of course, rough sleepers, especially in my area. And I can't even talk to them because I don't wear my camera. But even the police are looking at me and I said, no, you talk to that person. But what I am saying to you is we have to be very careful. We have to lead by example. But I need the fly tipping teams and the enforcement team to come back and tell us why they are not enforcing. And if you are enforcing and it's successful, why can't you publicize through the communication team and make sure that message is passed on to everybody? Because that is very important. Enforcement costs money, but it's also a deterrent. And but otherwise, I'm happy. Keep up the good work.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Councillor. Councillor Wooldridge, and then Councillor Green.
Hi. Yeah, I looked at the report this afternoon. I had sort of a half hour spare. It's a really good-looking report. It covers an awful lot, but there's going to be a small but. I'm sorry. Apologies for that. It does really have, as my colleague said to my right here, it's a pretty small sample size. The comparisons are difficult due to limited cases and repeated incidents, which can distort trends, which is what Ian said. The other thing is the exclusion of police data. The absence of police ASB reports leads to incomplete data. So if we could get any chance of getting that synced together, that would be great. Yeah, and I mean, there's a few other minor things, but those are the main two. What I would say on the report there, when I first became a councillor, and something which I found really informative, was the multi-agency meeting. I thought they were really informative. You know, reconnaissance is really wasted, and we get to know an awful lot within the regard to the multi-agency, and that would be really good if we can, even if we have it, you know, bi-yearly, quarterly. I know we're all stretched, but it was very useful. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Green.
Thanks. It follows on from what Councillor Manda said, that we are actually very low. Could we get some comparable data with other London boroughs? And I mean the outer London statistical neighbours like Havering and Richmond, and there's some others that are statistical neighbours of ours. I'm not talking about the inner Londons, because they will be different. But also by percentage of population, because we are smaller. And I'd just be really fascinated to look at that. What's going on over there?
I know.
But yeah, it'd just be really interesting to see where we actually, because we know we're a low crime borough. It would be nice to know that we are a low ASB borough, but it'd be nice to have the stats back it up. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Green. I think Councillor Tylan had another brief question. Yeah,
Sorry,
comment?
it's a comment actually. One other point I forgot to mention earlier. One of the reasons for the flag tipping, particularly on the shopping parades, is the businesses themselves. And I know some of the businesses don't have commercial contracts, and they tend to use either the bins from the residents or flag tip. I know recently the Vice enforcement team been around, and they have issued penalty notice for one or two people. But that's one of the issues. And the other thing is, if like alleyways, the vehicles won't go in, so they ask for the bins to be left on the pavement. And once it's there, then people start dumping rubbish around it. I know at least about 3 locations, that's what happens. So that's another issue I think we need to look at. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Tylan. Councillor Schapper, you had hopefully another brief question? Yes. Brief comment? Yes, please. Please go ahead.
Well, hope it's brief. Thank you, Chair. Yeah, it was just to say that what I like about the way that this report is presented is you actually get to see quite clearly that there's the majority of the neighbour disputes in Surbiton are linked to drugs. And I know there's other aspects, but when we talk about complexity, I think I make the assumption that it's about how much, it takes time and effort and resources to actually manage, particularly when you have residents with mental health issues as well. And it's just really acknowledging that I know it's an awful lot of work behind the scenes, because as local councillors, when we get those cases in our inboxes, it's not just something that you can just press a button. That's what takes a lot of time and energy to try and facilitate communication and work out who the best people are that you can signpost, or that you know yourself. So it was really just to acknowledge that, but also not only is it about the time, but it's the relationship with the partners, because as you say about the complex cases with the multi-agency risk, but actually, on our doorstep, we've obviously got Surbiton's alcohol and misuse team. And I know, having chaired my few health overview panels over the years, we've invited them and all the stats that come from them, but actually being out in the community, you're trying your best to deal with, in effect, people with maybe long-term issues that they have to deal with. It's not going to be the last time that you're going to see them or talk to them.
Sorry, Councillor Schapper. I just want to interject at this point. It might be useful to take this conversation offline, maybe invite them to one of the HOP meetings.
I was wrapping up actually, just to say thank you very much for the report. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
This has proved to be a very popular item with our members here tonight, especially on the fly tipping side of things. It might be worth having another session in the future where you bring the waste team, maybe the wise enforcement team with you, and we talk about that. So thank you very much. Do you perhaps might just give us a brief summary of what you've heard here, and then we can take the rest of it offline. We have some other guests with us here tonight to talk about grants. So over to you.
Thank you. That was a lot of questions to try and sum up, but I will do my best. So I think a couple of people asked around kind of repeat cases and repeat perpetrators. So I would say where we have more complex cases, it is a very small number of people and a very small number of perpetrators. So, and I would say that for crime in general, actually, there's lots of statistics and evidence to back up that it's a very small proportion of a population that are both victims of crime and perpetrators. And that's where we should focus our resources, so to speak. I think neighbour disputes probably are the ones where we get the repeat ones where something either is ongoing, and I think just linking back, trying to answer someone else's question in terms of time and complexity, when we look at enforcement measures, we have to be able to demonstrate to a court that we've done everything we can to support, divert, and then we have to go through a long process, and sometimes that includes long court dates. So having chaired the community MARIC this morning, we have a number of cases where we've got enforcement action in the pipeline that has been sitting, and we're just trying to manage or kind of mitigate and support the victims during that time, because we either can't get a court date or it just takes a long time to process through to provide the evidence in enforcement. At the same time, we continue to try and offer that support, whether it be substance misuse, youth service interventions if it's our young people, and supporting those victims. So I hope that answers the question. Although I would just say I picked up on Councillor Amanda's comment around a kind of young population, and we're trying to work with young people at the moment, and we're including up to like the age of 25 all the way down to the Litleys, because their perception of antisocial behaviour is very different to what adults see as antisocial behaviour. And so we're trying to work with them to understand what impacts young people in the borough, using their terms, hopefully. So we're doing some work with young people at the moment, trying to bring them together. But if you say antisocial behaviour and those categories to them, they would go, oh no, like we don't really see that, or if we see it, we just move on. So they've got a very different view. So young population is really important. Fly tipping, I think we would definitely bring the fly tipping team with us next time, because I think at all committee meetings we've been asked loads of questions. So I think, yeah, obviously it's the first time we've presented. We didn't want to kind of come en masse as officers, but I think it could be helpful for us to have someone from fly tipping. Was there anything else we've missed?
Yeah, just related to the fly tipping, one of the things that I can answer is kind of the comparison between data from the fly tipping and the fixed penalty notice. So that data from the fixed penalty notice is quite low because there was only one enforcement officer. Now WISE is the new contractor for fixed penalty notices, so that data will change a bit. So we don't have the comparison. It's also two different services. That's the regulatory service does the fixed penalty notice, and then the fly tip data is on a completely different system. So the comparison might be quite difficult for us to do, but we will. At the moment, the fixed penalty notice doesn't give kind of like is quite low. The fixed penalty notice is given. So hopefully, with the new WISE contractors, that more capacity for enforcement, that will increase a bit. So we see those numbers change a little bit. At this moment, the data is just not there to compare, because then we say one fixed penalty notice over, I don't know, several wards. So yeah, that might not be very relevant. And related to neighbour dispute, the question of what is a neighbour dispute. So we have lots of different types of neighbour dispute, but if we have like kind of the civil things that you were talking about kind of like fences and those kind of things, that is not antisocial behaviour, and that doesn't come in our reports. So it's more around like disturbances for neighbours, which can be kind of noise disturbances for neighbours, or a neighbours. Sorry. drug dealing in the property, so it can be drinking or hanging outside the property and causing a nuisance, those kind of things, or the neighbour disputes that we mainly deal with. We don't deal with kind of like the overgrown gardens and those kind of things. That is not included in neighbour disputes, and even though it's a neighbour dispute, but it's not antisocial behaviour neighbour dispute. Let me just check through the notes. There's a second page.
Oh, okay. It might be worth probably just summing up, and then and it might also be worth having you come back in at a future meeting if my colleagues agree, maybe in 6 months' time to give us a follow-up on this, and like you say, maybe bring the fly tipping team with you. But yeah, if you perhaps would like to sum up, then we can go to our next item on the agenda.
Yeah, no problem. And also, I would say if any councillors want to contact us directly following the meeting, if we've not answered your question on the 2 pages in our kind of sum up. I know the police data was mentioned, and that is something that we'll look at. Ultimately, I guess as council officers, if councillors ask us to come and present, then we would come and present the police. We can work with them on that and try and present a fuller picture. But I think we just wanted to see how this landed and whether there was an appetite for having more information or not. People might not have been interested, but I think it's been very positive. So I will take that away as an action as well.
Okay. Oh, sorry. One. Yeah. Go ahead.
One more addition about the data comparison between boroughs. That one is quite difficult to do because everyone reports kind of the data very differently, different systems being used, so that can be quite challenging. About kind of like in general, we could include, for example, a slide around general comparison between the boroughs and why is Kingston the safest borough and kind of like crime rates. We could have a look at that. But comparing the ASB data specifically is a very difficult thing to do, and I don't think we will manage that. Okay. Yeah, we can look at the government data in general.
Okay. Well, thank you. Thank you very much, Lineker, and thanks, Steph, for coming and presenting to us tonight. And I think we'll definitely have you back, and perhaps we'll get an update on some of these issues and talk about fly tipping. So, thank you very much. I'd like to move on to the next item on the agenda because I'm conscious that we have some guests waiting here with us tonight, and that is the Community Grants Program. And we have James Geach, who's our neighbourhood manager here, who's going to present and guide us through this agenda item. So if you wish to follow along in the agenda, the relevant reports are contained in Appendix A of the agenda pack. So I'll hand over now to James. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chair. That's a good summary. As set out on the agenda, the committee has been asked to consider applications as part of its community grants programme, and a report for that purpose has been appended to the agenda. It's 2 applications tonight. The first is one for a neighbourhood community grant, and the second is a request for an allocation of council award funding. So I'll start with the neighbourhood community grant. This is a £3,000 application from the Surbiton Royal British Legion Youth Marching Band. And the report summarises the application between paragraphs 5 and 9. As you can see, the first paragraph there, the application meets all the minimum requirements of the programme. The only unusual thing I'll point out is that as a returning applicant, we also make the point of reporting on previous awards. I'm happy to report that both the previous awards awarded some time ago now by the committee were spent in accordance with those awards made at the time. We're very fortunate to be joined by both Ron and Diane from the Youth Marching Band, who have agreed to very quickly present their application and what they'll use the money for should it be awarded. Thank you, Jim.
Okay, well, thank you, James. Could I invite our representatives from the British Legion to come forward? Okay, and okay. Well, thank you very much for being here tonight, and perhaps you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your application.
Absolutely, thank you very much. So I'm Ron Spence, I'm bandmaster for the Surbiton Royal British Legion Youth Marching Band. We're a local youth marching band based at the Surbiton RBL Club in Hollyfield Road. We were formed in 1965 and we're a military-style marching band based on modelling ourselves on the UK service bands. We take part in many events locally, including the Surbiton Festival and Surbiton Remembrance Sunday Parade, which is extremely important to us. It's our main event of the year for us personally. But we also take part representing the Borough at the Lord Mayor's Show and also previously at the London New Year's Day Parade. We also travel around the UK and Europe representing, again, the Borough and also Surbiton as our home. The project that we have put together is we've set up a band academy, a youth academy, really youth academy, and it's to enable or offer music lessons to young people on a Thursday evening between 6 and 7. The reason behind this is we were doing recruitment events, and it's very important for youth groups to, very much like ourselves and Scouts, to recruit new members, otherwise it just dies out. And unfortunately, there was a band locally in the past 2 years which have folded for one reason or another. What we found was at these recruitment events is that even though we take people from 8, we were getting a lot of 7-year-old kids excited to come and wanted to join, and we couldn't. And we were having to say, come back to us next year, and of course that never happened. Or we would have kids at 6. That's very young, but 6, who were just about to turn 7 a month later. We're very proud that they were turning 7 a month later. But again, we had to say, come and see us when you're 8, and unfortunately it never happened. So what we decided was to set up the academy. It would be an hour a week, and it would be affordable for everybody. We do charge for it. It's £20 a year, which is very, very, I say the word cheap, it's affordable for everybody, and it means everybody can take part. Yeah, music lessons, and I'm not here to sort of have a go at people that do, teachers that do private lessons, because we have members that do that themselves. But for instance, if you wanted a trumpet lesson, it's between £18 and £34 for 30 minutes a week. Percussion, which is, for those who don't know, anything you can hit, is between £18 and £36, and the clarinet and flute is anything between £18 and £54 for 30 minutes. There's a lot more buttons on those to press, so that's one of the reasons why it is a lot more difficult. But we started it on the 19th September. We've been preparing for it since the beginning of the year, and it's been a success so far. 15 new members we've had, and we've got a waiting list of 7 so far. We're going to take new intake every term, but 15 people with different ages. We have some people that are 7, and we've got a few teenagers as well that have joined, and it gives them an opportunity, a taster for music. They can choose what instrument they want to play. They can they learn all the aspects of the band, for instance, that our band, which is playing, the musical theory and the marching side of things. And what we need is instruments to be able to feed that, because potentially, and obviously I don't know what's going to happen in the future, but we've got a waiting list already, but we need to make sure that their instruments are available for them for when they join. And we do have instruments, but some of them are not suitable for students. If you're able to purchase student instruments, they're lighter for the kids. They've got less octaves on some of the woodwind instruments, which means it's easier to learn, and they're a bit smaller. They're more durable, easier to fix, cheaper to fix, and overall they're just more suitable for learners. The plan would be, like we do with our main band, is that the instruments will be loaned to the youngsters in the academy band, and then they'll be passed down once they've learned, or they've got to a level where they can upgrade their instrument. Longevity of the instruments is, well, I would say a minimum of 10 to 15 years these instruments will last. Potentially, they could last decades. And part of the programme is they will learn how to maintain and look after the instruments. We've got instruments that are well into their 80s. We've got some players that are well into their 80s, but that's... well, some of the instructors are close to that. But for us, the main reason for the project is to help the band with recruiting, but to also offer the youngsters the opportunity to learn music and play an instrument of their choice where it's affordable. There's no obligation for them to join the band once they feel that they've got the skills to do that. We do hope that they do. But if they move into other musical groups, other bands, it's a win-win situation for everybody. Sort of in summary, really, is that, I think I'm writing this, everybody likes music. You may not like sport, you may not like movies, you may not like cars, but I don't think there's anyone on the planet who hates music. It's everywhere. It's on the radio, it's in movies, it's in supermarkets, it's in lifts. Music is everywhere, but badly in the lifts, yeah. It's called Muzak there, I think, yeah. But with musical programmes in schools being cut, it's important for programmes like this and other musical groups we have in the borough to really get the support that we need to offer this to all our youngsters. Thank you.
Okay, well, thank you very much, Ron. I'm intrigued by the idea of your band members perhaps playing music in lifts for all of us, so we get some quality music for a change. Can I ask if members have any questions for Ron? And just keep it to questions at this point. If there's anything, I thought the report was pretty good and your explanation was excellent. So but if anything's unclear, then please let's ask some questions. Councillor Manders.
Yeah, thank you. Just to pick up on the point you made about the reduction in provision at schools, is there any coordination between you and the music service provided to Kingston schools?
Yes, but only recently. So, for instance, with KMAS, we reached out to them before. We didn't get much comeback from them. However, this year they held an event at All Saints Church in Kingston, which was a convention. It's not a convention. It was more like a showcase of music that was in the borough, available to everybody. And they were absolutely brilliant in organising that. Also, they were very welcoming. And going forward, they've asked us to do it again for next year. We have, with Kingston Music Service, it is through schools, and you can have tuition through them as well. And we have members that do and have been part of that before. And it is invaluable for those people that have done that because it takes them to another level as well. But again, that's something you have to pay for. It's not always affordable, possibly, for everybody. But the interaction we've been having with them recently has been really, really good. Schools, less so. We have tried in the past, okay, albeit not very recent, but we have tried in the past to sort of engage with schools to maybe go and play there, promote ourselves. We've had no real comeback from that, unfortunately. And I don't know whether that's because music services are being cut or anything like that, but we would love to engage with schools in the borough if we could.
Okay, thank you. Do we have any further questions for Ron before we move on to the discussion? Okay, well, thank you very much, Ron. If you'd like to have a seat again, thank you very much for your presentation. So in a moment, I'll open it up to comments from members. But first of all, just to reiterate the motion, the application for £3,000 of neighbourhood community grant from Surbiton, a Royal British Legion Youth Marching Band, as set out in paragraphs 5 to 12 of the report, be approved. So I'm moving that. Do I have a seconder for that? And I'll say, see, Councillor Holt got in there. So seconded by Councillor Holt. So would members who wish to speak on this item please raise their hand? Councillor Holt. As a seconder, do you want to reserve your right to speak at the end or speak now?
I was just going to say that I've been here before. I was actually at Surbiton Festival the other weekend and saw you and the young people playing. So, and it was really lovely. It was really amazing to see it. And I'm actually blessed with some really nice weather, which I think the last time we maybe gave you, I think it was some rain covers that I think we gave you. Yeah. So I'm fully in support of this programme. My children didn't go along to the marching band, but did go to school, to K-Mass, and did play instruments at school. And I know it's expensive, and I know it's difficult to get them to do the practice that they should do. But this sounds like a great thing, and I probably should have known about this when they were younger. So I just would like to say that I think it would be great. We would all support this, and we could just support it unanimously and say and give them the money. So.
Okay, I think Councillor Davis wanted to come in with a comment.
I was just going to say almost exactly the same thing, especially about children's music lessons. And also, this is an obvious answer to the antisocial behaviour that we've been looking at earlier. So get the kids off the street and get them into the band.
Okay, thank you. If we don't have any further comments, can I take this as unanimous, or do we need to go to vote? Okay, that's unanimous. Okay, well, thank you very much for coming and presenting to us tonight, and that was passed unanimously. And we look forward to seeing the fruits of your work, your teaching work at future events. So thank you so much. So, James, would you like to move on to our next application, please?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Moving on to council award funding now. We have a request for an allocation from the Alpha Road Residents Association to help fund their seniors' Christmas meal. And we've got Mary here who's come to briefly talk about what she'd like to use the money for. Thank you, Chair.
Welcome, and thank you for your patience.
Okay. Thank you for inviting me. I'll just give you a little bit of story about it. It's going back some years. Staywell used to put on a Christmas meal with support from RBK. They opened it to sheltered accommodation, and they used to hold it in the Bradbury Centre. That all stopped in 2019. Then we went into lockdown, and the people missed it. I met with some residents in 2021, 22 at meetings and different things, and I asked them if I organised it, would I get their support? And they said they would. So I did the first one, and I invited 30 people, and it was a success. The second one, 2023, and I upped the figure to 35 people, and that was a success. This year I'm running a bit low on cash. But that's why I'm here tonight. And this year it would include everybody. I'm not just opening it to sheltered, I'm opening it to everybody living on their own or people who are isolated, as I did last year. I have organised music, as in I have, a 3-course meal, a raffle if we have time during the evening. I have a band of volunteers who help during the night. Serving meals, serving drinks, seating people. If there's people with disability, they help cut the food on the plate with them. This helped keep the cost down. What else do we do? Oh, yeah, we have visits from ward councillors last year and the year before. They just pop in, say hello to everybody. The police have come, said hello to everybody for the evening. And the nurses next door, the social workers, they come in and say hello. They know most of them, most of the people who are there anyway. So this year, I just like a little bit of money to subsidise the meal and the entertainer, please.
Okay, well, thank you very much, Mary, for coming and presenting. There might be possibly, I'll just check with members and see if they have any questions for you. So, Councillor Green, you have a question? Anybody else?
Do you want the mayor to pop in? Sorry? Do you want the mayor to pop in?
Oh, I'm never coming to you again.
Well, that sounds like a no from Councillor Green. Okay, bear with us. We may just see if there's any further questions. Any other questions for Mary before we move on to comments? No. Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mary. So I'll just briefly refamiliarise ourselves with moving the following recommendation: allocation of £1,000 of Councillor Ward funding to support the Alpha Road Residents Association Senior Christmas Meal, and be approved. And I'll take somebody else as a secondary this time. Councillor Schapper will... beg your pardon? Oh, Schapper, sorry. Right, we're getting to that hour now. Okay, thank you very much. That's seconded. Are there any comments? Councillor Wooldridge.
The only comment I've got is, Mary, thank you for your tireless work within the community. We're all very grateful. Thank you.
Any further comments? No. Can I take that as unanimously approved? Yes. Okay. Right. Okay. Thank you very much. Congratulations, Mary. That passes, and you can liaise with James regarding the money. Okay, that's terrific. And the next item on the agenda is the Browns Road area permit parking. And as I said earlier, I'll be recusing myself from this and handing over to Councillor Davis. So enjoy.
Okay, so now we come to item 8 on the agenda, which is the Browns Road area permit parking review. Members of the committee and meeting participants may refer to Appendix B of the agenda pack and the late material, which should be on your tables in front of you. First of all, I would like to ask Yunus Hamadeh, the principal engineer, to introduce the report. Thank you, Yunus.
Thank you, Chair. In February 2024, I brought a report to this committee regarding the review of the Brown Road PPA. At that time, members felt they would like me to do park and beat survey in order to see the outcome of that before they make their final decision. What you have in front of you here, member, is the result of the survey, together with the recommendation which remained the same. As an officer, we felt we want the hours of restriction to remain the same, Monday till Friday, 11 till 2, and there is no change from the existing or the current restrictions. So I'm happy to take any question from members, Chair. Thank you.
So before we come to that stage, we're going to have some public comments. One resident has registered to speak or ask a question on this item. So could I ask Graham Thurell, is that your, sorry, Thurl? Can't read the writing, sorry. Graham Thurl, to come and ask his question. Graham, you'll have 2 minutes, and Herman will let you know when you have 30 seconds left and when your time is up. Thank you, over to you.
Is it on? Ah, yeah, there we go. Good evening. I'm a resident. This has been an ongoing issue. The parking in that area has been ongoing for, well, in fact, about a decade. The report is fine. However, timing is everything. Biggest issue we have now is the flats that were erected recently, which we knew when they went through planning were going to be a problem. I know the plans were just weighed through by the council without any consideration of the parking. And it's now become a big problem because literally in the last month, those flats have been occupied. And so the beat survey is pretty much invalid. That's just my experience in living on the road. I mean, initially it wasn't a huge issue, but now, in fact, if you walk past them, if any councillors go by that way, if you look past now, all the lights are on at night. So they're pretty much, there's a couple that are still empty. But from 2 o'clock on a on a Friday afternoon until a Monday morning, the parking is very getting to a point where it's much harder in terms of all the residents on the roads. We appreciate there are restrictions on the flats, but they don't count over weekends. So my request would be, I don't know whether another survey can be done, but actually the one that was conducted should have been delayed until the flats were occupied, because now the issue is there because they're all full. There's lots of people that live in those flats that park on a road. You can just see it. You just see them parking up, going into flats. There aren't enough parking spaces for everybody in those flats. And it's, as I say, even now on Alpha Road, so at a weekend, all along Alpha Road is occupied by cars. It does change throughout the day. I mean, on a weekday, it's quiet throughout the day when the parking restrictions are on. So my request, I know it's obviously there's lots of requests on the parking, but actually that beat survey be reconducted, because now the issue is there, and especially from a sort of Friday afternoon to Monday morning at weekends, it's a real problem. And whether that some kind of restrictions can be looked at on a Saturday, so it puts off those residents just thinking, I can come home on a Friday, and park there. I mean, it is an issue of a normal evening, because what the restrictions fail to do is catch people who, get up at 8 in the morning, get in the car, drive to work, come home at 5, they don't touch them. We can just about live with that, but at weekends it's getting really bad. And also, I'm guessing for local businesses, where if we had a small restriction that might put off people parking there all weekend, they might see an uplift as well. So it's just to raise an issue. I mean, I'm the only one here, but we've got a sort of WhatsApp group, particularly for Warwick Grove and Browns Road, and everybody there, largely because nobody has any off-street parking. And I note that the survey sort of said, well, it's really Warwick Grove and Browns Road, but that's always been the case. It's always been that particular hotspot because of the nature of the housing. It's all Victorian Terrace, or pretty much Victorian Terrace with no off-street parking. The further away you go where there's off-street parking, or we haven't got the pressure of the flats, if you go further along down onto King Charles Crescent, it's not such an issue there, because although it is becoming, I think, especially in the last month, that the flats are filling up. Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you.
So,
okay.
move them on.
So thank you very much, Mr. Searle. You can go back to your seat, thank you. And we will start the debate, and Eunice will address your points during the debate. So now we come to the debate.
Yes.
Okay. So I will now move from the chair the recommendations at the front of the report on page B1, adding the reference to the late material which is in front of you. So the resolution is, the committee is asked to resolve that, number 1, the result of the parking beat survey of the 8th of May 2024 as set out in paragraphs 1 to 6 of the report and the late material be noted. Secondly, in the light of the survey results analysis, the existing parking arrangements remain unchanged. And thirdly, the residents be informed of the committee's decisions. Do I have a seconder? I sense there may be an amendment coming up. Councillor Hurlinger has seconded, thank you. So would members of the committee who wish to speak about this please raise your hands now? Oh, sorry. Do I do Eunice next? I would just suppose that we would do it, but yeah, why not? Okay.
Yeah,
So thank you. So back to Eunice first, thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I think the resident raised a point about currently the situation is getting worse because the resident who purchased this new flat, now they have cars, and despite, according to Section 106 in planning, doesn't allow them to buy permit. But as our restriction is only between 11 a.m. till 2 p.m., Monday till Friday, as the gentleman said, if somebody go to work at 9 o'clock and come back at 4 o'clock, he's fine. He can park anywhere and he doesn't need a permit. So, yeah, I can say there is some point of that, if that is the current situation. But when I present the item to the committee, there was no talking about the flat. And all what was about what is the current, at that time, the parking situation. And that's why we've done the parking at that time. So now if members feel there is reason to believe the situation now change, and they would like us to do another survey, I'm happy to do so, but that means the report will be deferred till I do another survey. But at that time, I think before I do the survey, I need to make sure there is no flat not being sold yet. That means all of them are occupied before I make any survey. So if member wish me to do that, I'm happy to do that. I bring a report back to you, committee. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So who would like to speak about this? Councillor Holt, thank you. And Councillor Sharper. Councillor Holt first.
Thank you. I think that just to sort of put a bit of sequence to this, this came before, and the residents at that time came along and asked and made some comments about the parking. And then to evidence that, we did this beat check to see where it was. And it's actually highlighted that there are a lot of spaces, and I think you've acknowledged that there are spaces during the day. What we probably haven't got from this, because it was taken during the week, that they're perhaps the block of flats. We can't say that it's the block of flats that are necessarily doing this, because people can come, it's unrestricted at the weekend, and so anybody could be parking there. But it is only at the weekend, and from what I can see, during the week, it's there seem to be spaces. I live nearby. I walk by it quite a bit, just to kind of keep an eye on it, and I would say that there are spaces, and it's not always going to be spaces. It is difficult. It is very near to the shops. It's very near to a lot of housing. So there's going to be challenges with parking in that area, and we've gone some way to alleviate that with the parking beat survey. With the parking restrictions that's in place. I'm sort of, because it's being thrown now, I'm not quite sure. My feeling was that I was happy with what we had here. It was showing that there were spaces. We could just keep on doing this until, you come back the next time and say that it's something else, and then we've got another thing to look at. I'm not sure about changing this. I don't think... I'm not quite sure what where to go on this one, because I'm obviously listening to what you said, but it certainly didn't come up the last time when the residents came. I'm just saying, and I did kind of go against, what was said the last time and ask for a beat survey. Eunice, that's why I wanted to know, do you think this is going to make a big difference? Because there are a lot of spaces that are available, and what the beat survey is showing that. And we set it up in the first place. I wasn't involved in it, wasn't my ward, and when it was first set up, but we didn't do restrictions at the weekend. That was what was decided on the basis of at that time. The only thing that has changed is the block of flats, but they can only really park when the parking restriction is not there. So they can't park there all day apart from at the weekend. So
Right.
Eunice, can you help me
Councillor.
out here?
Can I come back to you, Eunice, when everybody's asked their questions or comments? Can we go to Councillor Sharper next?
Yeah, thanks, Chair. It's just kind of following on from what Councillor Holt was saying, because we were involved quite closely when it was Berylyn's ward when the Section 106 agreement was being discussed. I think, Eunice, we recall we had lots of conversations about that, and I think we made an assumption at the time that we didn't think that there would be so much of an issue with cars using the space in Warwick Grove because of the restriction on getting a permit. But clearly they have, as you've explained, Eunice, there's a way round this, where cars have found a way round the the restriction that we've put in place. So I in that sense, I would be open to your suggestion about having another survey done, because I didn't get the sense from this about the knock-on effect of the flats. And I remember when we first put the PPA in, I remember we said we would be open to intelligence and information from residents. So I'm just leaving it with the flexibility that I wouldn't be against having another survey done if that actually makes it clearer, makes the decision clearer.
Okay, thank you. I think
thank you, Chair.
Getting at. Thank you.
Thank you.
And now Councillor Khan. Thank you.
So just going back to what Councillor Holt said, I also wanted to just add to the question to Eunice as to if he knows how many flats we're talking about and the number of flats.
Thank you. So over to you, Eunice, I think, for these lots of questions here.
Thank you, Chair. I'm sorry, for the top of my head, I don't know how many extra flats we're talking about, but I do agree with members. I think there is a reserve capacity, and the survey showed that, even if with the number of a flat had been taken it, because for me, if somebody live in the area, the problem is not going to be only on Friday afternoon till Monday morning. What are they going to do nighttime? So if you have a problem, the problem is nighttime as well. So you park there, nighttime. So if currently there is a space during nighttime, that means there is no problem. So I think the situation could be outsiders, not only the flat itself, could be the shops, because there is some restaurant and some places where people park and go to the restaurant. So it could be a lot of stuff we need to look into that. But I feel my advice will be to members to approve the scheme, the resolution as it is, with adding one bit, which means to review the scheme after 1 year. So after 1 year from now, I'll do the same exercise with the new surveys and ask the people again if they feel they want to see any changes. By doing that, we're giving the situation to be settled and to give that, to go to the worst scenario after 1 year, so we can see how the residents feel and what the survey is telling us after 1 year. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. I think from what I heard from the resident, a lot of the problems are at the weekend and times when the flats aren't regulated. Sorry? I think you can come up again and say a quick something. Oh no, sorry. I haven't done. Sorry, I'm so sorry. I haven't done chairing before, so I'm not familiar with the procedures. So I apologise. Apparently, you're not allowed to say anything else. But the motion has been moved. So are we allowed to amend the motion and say let's come back in a year and have another look at this? Sorry.
As far as I'm aware, under the Constitution, there is nothing to stop a public speaker from coming back once we've started the debate. Yeah. I think it's probably at Chair's discretion to maintain
well,
that.
I think that this Chair would very much like to hear.
Thank you. Thank you. I think it's because sometimes you might have 50 people, and therefore you've got to limit. Yeah.
I can see Eunice's point, and I know we've been back and forward on this a lot, and it's coming round. But I distinctly remember when we talked about reviewing it, it was after those flats would be occupied. Because at the planning stages, my understanding was that there were a lot of objections, but mostly about the number of flats. Because we're talking about a couple of hundred people in total in those flats. And there are very few parking spaces. I mean, I've been into downtown, I think it's about 15 odd parking spaces. And this was one of the issues that we raised. We knew it would be a problem. Now, I totally understand that the shops and everything, and we're not trying to stop that. But it's when you can't even get parked on Alpha Road and you've got to go down, from Warwick Grove. Now, and again, I know we don't have a right to a parking space, and this is part of living without off street parking. But it was more that I just didn't remember that the review process was going to be conducted soon after those flats have been occupied. And I think it's just been unfortunate because they were delayed. I mean, they were left empty for the best part of a year when the builders went bust. So the sort of, they should have been occupied sooner. And I think that might be part of the problem with the survey taking place in May and missing the opening. And it's literally in the last 6-8 weeks that they've all started to be occupied and it become a real issue. And that would be my thing. So waiting a year to me we're just, you know, we're going to be back at the next neighbourhood meeting, I'll be here saying the problem's getting worse. So I totally respect, you know, I get that, but it's more just a plea. They're pretty much, I think there might be one or two that aren't, but or they're sold and the people haven't moved in or whatever, but, you know, that would all. Thank you very much.
So, Eunice, your suggestion was a year's time. I'm hearing from the resident a year is much too long. Is there any way we could have another survey sooner than a year?
It is your call, members, whatever you wish. If you wish to do the survey before, could be done before. So it's up to you. But as I said, my recommendation for you, member, is to wait for another year and we review the situation again. We consult the resident again. It's not only do survey. We can send letter out to the resident, how they feel about the scheme. Do they want to keep it? Do they want to extend it? Do they want extra hours? So it's a new consultation altogether, but have the feeling what the resident feel at that time. Thank you, Chair.
I've got an opinion.
Oh, do share. So I am going to, am I allowed to amend the motion a little bit and just say, I'm going to follow Eunice's advice, I'm sorry, and take a review in a year's time for various reasons to do with not wanting to upset traffic officers mainly. And so can we have, I'd like to amend the motion. May I have a seconder to say let's keep the motion as it is with the possibility of a review, you know, the definite happening of a review in a year's time. Can I have a, we can, let's say in May. Yes, let's say in May. Thank you. Councillor Green has seconded that. Thank you. So can we have a vote? Are we unanimous on this or do we need a vote?
Chair, may I have...
Oh, sorry, Herman is interrupting. Sorry. Thank you. The survey will take place in May. So I'm adding a fourth point, which is that there will be another beat survey in May, roughly a year after this beat survey, and that we will come back to committee if there's no meeting in May. When's the next one? June? June. Let's say we'll come. Is that too soon, Eunice?
It depends on whether
you need to validate your data. As soon as Eunice has validated his data, we'll be back. Okay.
Thank you, Chair. But can we say just leave it a bit of, you know, flexible to say within a year I'll bring report to this committee outlining the result of the survey and the result of the consultation.
Okay, with flexibility, we're not going to tie you down to that, but as close as we can. So are we ready to take a vote?
On the amendment.
Can we vote on the amendment first of all?
Yep.
Agreed unanimously or take a vote? Everyone's okay. And on the main motion, which is the 3 points that I read out at the beginning, agreed. Thank you very much. Now we can let Councillor Reeve back in. Thank you.
Okay. Well, thank you, Councillor Davis, for chairing that item. And we now move on to now move on to item 9, the proposed local implementation plan program 25-26, and we have Eunice here to present on this. You can refer to Appendix C of the agenda pack for the report, and the committee has been asked to provide their views on the proposed programs in Annex 1 of the report, which will then be reported to the Place Committee on the 12th of November. So hand over to Eunice to introduce the report. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Every year we come to Fall Neighbourhood seeking their comment, where we have been asked by TfL to bid for our year's grant for 24-25. Now we need to put for 25-26, 27-28 for the next 3 years. At the same time, TfL give us a criteria, and it is we need to check and see if our scheme meet their criteria. Main the criteria is about improving road safety, encouraging active travel, encouraging people to use more cyclists and more walking, and reduce collision. So what you have in front of you here is a list of projects which has been developed by officers, and some of them as well, it's ongoing. Because if you look to the list, there is some of them which already we introduced previously, and we are continue to monitor some of the scheme like 20 miles per hour, etc. All I'm asking members is to note this report, and if there is any comment, the same as the other 3 neighbourhoods, if there is any comment you would like to raise, which I will include it in my report to the Place Committee in the 12th of November, where they will make a decision. This committee will only note, but the Place Committee will make the resolution on this list. So I'm happy to take any question, Chair.
Okay, thank you very much, Eunice. So the first order of business is to invite any public comments, and I believe we have Marcus. Yeah, is it Relton? Yeah, would you like to come forward? Okay. Would you like to come forward and ask your question, make your comments? There's, as you probably realize now, there's 2 minutes for questions and comments from you. So, and Herman will let you know when there's 30 seconds left. So.
Is there a point at which I can ask a supplementary if needs be, and a point at which I can't in terms of procedure? I may not need to, but just in
okay. Well,
but I thought I'd better ask now rather than get halfway through a motion and find out I couldn't. But.
Okay. We'll play that one
if necessary.
We'll play that one by ear and see how it goes. If it's relevant to the discussion, then I would certainly I would want to hear from you. So thank you very much. Please go ahead and ask your question or make your comments, please.
I'm Marcus Relton, resident in Park Road, and as a cyclist, there was a possibility to get a cycle storage hangar in Parklands, which I understand isn't going to go ahead because there are objections from residents. I don't know what the objections were or whether they were good objections, bad objections, or some kind of visceral opposition from the motoring lobby. So the question is, from a cycling point of view, more background on my own personal self-interest rather than the general citizenry's point. I mean, I have to use a cycle storage hangar in St Mark's Hill, which is about 10 minutes walk away and 10 minutes back. So that adds 20 minutes to each commute, as well as if you're going to a workspace, you have to spend time, like a military operation, packing panniers and so on. So it is inconvenient. I was told that Surbiton Hill Park, which is the nearest one, had 6 spaces full and 5 people on the waiting list. I also understand that there are other storage hangars where there's about a demand of 40 or 50. I don't know which ones, and that's just anecdotal. There's one in Berrylands and King Charles Road. So the question is, how from a cycling citizen's point of view, do you find out, A, what the objections are and assess what the quality is, and then have your opportunity to give the cyclist point of view, and secondly, what is the level of demand, because there doesn't seem to be any public information as to what that is, and that's basically the issues from my own perspective and from the more general perspective, because of the specific demographic of this area. There's lots of old houses which are flats, and there are likely to be lots of people with bikes and without the space to use them.
Okay, no, so if you'd like to stay there, thank you very much for your question. And yeah, I think I've become aware of the fact that there's a growing demand for cycle hangers in our area as well. But let me hand over to Eunice for a reply on that.
Thank you, Chair. We receive certain budget from TfL for putting those cycle hanger. So the officer prepared more than number of location, more than the budget, because we always have a receive objection from people when we advertise them. So say, for example, we have money for 12, we advertise 15 or 16. So the reason for that is because we need to implement them as soon as possible. So the idea, if we have some objection to some of these hangers, what we do first, we'll deal with the one we don't have any objection for them, and we implement them. And the one we have objection, we'll bring them back to committee later on in due course. Then committee, they can make a decision if they want to uphold it or not. So, so therefore, the gentleman, yes, it was an objection. And I'm happy to say the objection is from car users, because there is a number of on-street parking in the area, and they say in the cycle hanger will take one space. But however, the gentleman or the objectors or everybody will have access to this objection when we are presenting the report to this committee, which it shows the result of, the objection and how we're going to address the objection. So therefore, we're not saying we don't want to do it, we're saying it is on the list, but now we have money for a number of them where we have no objection, so we're going to implement this one first, then after that we can add that for the next batch we want to introduce. I hope that answers that question, Chair.
Okay, well, thank you, Eunice. Actually, I was going to ask Mr. Welton, does that answer your question, or do you have a supplementary question on that matter?
I suppose the only supplementary question is, I suppose the statistics for demand, would they be available, and what would be the timescale for when it comes back to the committee and the council looks at the sites which do have objections, really?
Right. Can you address those, Eunice?
Yeah, actually, we do know the demand, and I did ask about the demand for the parkland, and we have only one demand, only one request.
Oh, there was one registered request for the...
One request we received for parkland. So that it is why. We have others, we have more, but we include them all. But I have seen the request we received only from one request.
Okay.
I think from the gentleman.
Okay, so that's the number of requests that we had. Okay. We'll come on to comments when we've moved the resolution. Okay, well, thank you very much, Mr. Relton, for coming in and speaking to us tonight. And obviously, I think it is an important issue, so thank you.
What was the timescale for the report coming back to the committee? Just...
Oh, right, okay. But, is there another report? We'll consider another round of cycle hangers at some point, will we? Or how does that work, Eunice? Maybe you could take...
Like I said, we have a certain budget and we're spending it. So if there is a certain budget going to given to us in this year, so we need to bid for a new one. So when we know when there is funding available, I will let you know when the report will be brought back to this committee.
Okay, so the answer would be the next budget cycle.
Great, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. Thanks very much for that. Right, so basically it's, I just need to move the recommendation at the front of the report on page C1. Does anybody, do I need to read that out, or are everybody content with what we have there? Okay. Do I have a seconder for that that motion? Councillor Shopper. Thank you. Right, and would members who wish to speak raise their hand? I already see Councillor Davis. Anyone else? Yeah. Okay. Please go ahead, Councillor.
You'll be pleased. Thank you. I know this resolution is more than just about cycle hangers. But I think in the interest of fairness, greenness and justice, it just seems totally wrong that we spent 10 minutes or more discussing parking spaces. And my question ultimately to Eunice will be, how many objectors does it take to stop a bike hanger? Because the idea of somebody having to walk for 10 minutes to get to their bike, to travel sustainably, greenly and mentally healthily and physically healthily, just seems quite immoral, really, when they could have a space. And just anecdotally, I had a daughter who had to choose between her bike hanger and moving in with her boyfriend, and it was a very close call.
Right. Shall we take comments from councillors and then maybe get Eunice to sum up in the interest of time? So, Councillor Gonsalves, please.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Eunice, for the report. I noticed there is no mention of Tolworth area healthy streets. So I had a couple of questions about that. Back in March, in this committee meeting, it was explained to us that the mini roundabout would be reviewed and maybe redone in 2024 to 2025, which I realize is the current financial year. I was just wondering if that funding is already in place or if we need to request more funding for next year. And also, as we are currently collecting data in the Tolworth area, should we budget for some, should we request more funding for Tolworth for next year?
Okay, thank you, Councillor. Councillor Holt?
Mine is with regard to the 20 miles an hour, looking at the data and the impact of that particularly in Surbiton. I just wanted to know if, I think this has been before, I just wondered what work has been done and what's likely to be done, because I am being asked by residents about this.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Shopper?
Thank you. This is hopefully a very quick question, Chair, for Eunice. Eunice, on the delivery programme, I've just got a query, if it's okay. Last year's LIP had the Alexandra Drive improvements to the triangle in there, and it's not in there now, but we had LIP funding allocated. My question is, has it been, or is there an expectation that it can be incorporated, if it was going to be feasible, incorporated into the Berrylands Healthy Streets area, because obviously that's now in there, but the Alexandra Triangle's out. So I just wanted to clarify, if we have responses back from the survey, the Berrylands wide survey, that people, residents were still interested, or there was a feasibility for improvements to the triangle, is that still feasible as part of the delivery programme for the Berrylands Healthy Streets area? So it's just a point of clarification, really, on that.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor. And Councillor Manders?
Yes, just coming back to the cycle hanger, and my suggestion is, Chair, that we all know that consultations is very difficult to reach people. But if there are residents who have put their name to a waiting list for a cycle hanger very nearby, like is the case between Park Road and the cycle hanger in Surbiton Hill Park, it seems to me sensible for us also to consult those people about a proposed cycle hanger which is near to them and what their views are. Because in the end, what we also need, as it were, is enough customers for those cycle hangers. So that's my suggestion going forward. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you, Councillor. And Councillor Green.
Terrible of me. I'm very sorry. There's no number of objections that mean we overturn a cycle hanger. We've, in the past, overturned quite a lot of objections and put in a cycle hanger if we feel that it is in the right place and that it's needed. What I'd say to the gentleman that's asking about the cycle hanger is, find some other cyclists in your area and get them to write in, because, you know, you probably see them on your bike. Get them to write in as well, because the more requests you can get for a cycle hanger in that vicinity, I take what Councillor Manders has said, the more requests you can get into the council, the more likely it is to come off that you get a cycle hanger. And it's worth doing it. And this committee, as a rule, does install the cycle hangers. It might move them up and down a road because we might decide that that isn't the most logical place. Actually, a little bit further up is more logical. But we have certainly put them in very stressed parking areas, of which Parklands is not a very stressed parking area in our neighbourhood. Anyway, the real thing, that's wrong. The thing I originally wanted to say was, Eunice, could you tell me whether we're getting the Green Man crossing at the bottom of Cranes Park, Beaufort and Lingford that was in this year's LIP? Well, actually, it was in last year's originally, I think, and then it got moved to this year's, because if we're not getting in this year's LIP, I want to put it in for next year's LIP, because I will get it before I stand down from this council.
Okay. If there are no further questions, I'll hand over to Eunice. Would you like to address would you like to sum up and address those questions? Thank you.
Okay, I'll start with the first one. About the objection, councillors, it's not the number, because the minute we have objection, if there is 1 or there is 100, I need to bring it to you here. I think the decision, that is where it's different. Are we upholding this objection and say yes, or are we saying no, set it aside? So I think to which way, it depends on when I bring it here, that's where the decision will be debated. As an officer, we can say no, we need it because we can set aside the objection and move on with the hanger. So, but as a regulation, we need to bring it. The minute there is objection, 1 or 20 or 100, I need to bring a report because I can't deal with it without committee approval. That's the first one. The second one, the mini roundabout, we felt is, at that time, we felt we're not going to do it. And the reason for that is because any changes will be for the mini roundabout, it will impact on the buses turning. So there is very, very minor changes or minor improvement we can do for the mini roundabout. So that's why it's not on that list, but if members want, we can add it on the list. You can add it as a part of the note, so we can ask for it to be done, because at the moment, as members did not approve it as part of Annex 5, that's when we summarize the need and what we're going to go forward. So the mini roundabout, it wasn't as a part of that. But if members want that to be added to the list, yes, we can add it for 25-26 funding. That is what we'll be doing. That 20 miles per hour, we will be bringing a report to all committees outlining how we're going to deal with the 20 miles per hour. We will be doing speed surveys, and that speed survey in some of the roads. Then after that, we can compare before and after. And in the same time, we need to have a look if these roads are now complying with 20 miles per hour or not. If it's not complying, what else we can do in order to make it comply with 20 miles per hour? Is that to introduce small crossing? It depends on the road and depends on the location. About Alexandra, in Let's Talk, yes, there is some comment received from the public on Let's Talk about Alexandra. There is for and there is against. So the report, when we bring to you in December, it will show the outcome of this discussion. Therefore, if there's any changes, we will be recommending as a part of this in December. If you want to consult, we can consult in the Alexandra Triangle. So we're still working on the report, but as I said, we will discuss with members before we bring the report here to see what we're going to put in the Berryland report before you see it. That is the idea before we start working on the report. About consultation in the cycle hangers, I'm afraid we have a quite high demand. It seems it's very, very popular, and everybody wants a cycle hanger, but we don't have enough money. So we only put how much we can. So, and we have a list already for people who want to see cycle hanger. So as Councillor Green saying, if you ask for it, you have it. I'm afraid it's not straightforward anymore. You have to wait for it, but we can add you to the list. And then when we add you to the list, then after that, when we have funding available, we will look into the one we have objection first, and we try to deal with it. Then after that, we will add the new one into that consultation. That is how we will be looking into that. Regarding the Grace Park Avenue, the Greenman aspect, we are working with TfL because, believe it or not, TfL telling us now they want the whole of the signal to be new in order to have a Greenman aspect. And the cost of that is double what we thought it is. However, we're not losing hope, so we want to talk with TfL, and I would like to implement it as well. I'm not going anywhere, but I would like to implement it as well. I like to implement it as well. So I'm working on that, and I will keep you posted as well. So if everything goes in hand, we will be implementing it by March 2025, hopefully. But if I feel there is nothing, we need to add it on that list for next year. I agree 100% on that. And I think that's all the point be raised, Chair.
Okay,
Unless I missed one of them.
Okay, so just to be clear, you've captured the comments then to add to the report to go to place on November 12th.
Sorry, what I'm taking from this is a mini roundabout at Thornhill and Red Line Road to be added. And second point is we require more cycle hanger to see if we can bid for more onto that. And the third is if the Cranes Park, we felt we cannot implement it this financial year, to be added for next year for delivery. Okay. I'm taking from this committee this 3 points.
Okay, so if anybody feels that that misses anything, just raise your hand. But I'll go to Councillor Gonsalves. She'll honor to make a comment.
Thank you, Chair. We just wanted to clarify that on the 12th of March, we requested a review of the mini roundabout. We chased that a few times, and then we had a response from you, Eunice, on the 22nd of March, saying that it would be included in the 2024-2025 scheme. So it wasn't part of Annex 5, which was published by officers, but it's something we requested, and we definitely want done. Thank you.
Okay.
As I said before, councillors, 24-25, that's what we did. That's what we have now. So if you, it is not for 25-26. So it is now. If you want us to work on that now, which fine, I will be working on it this financial year. But like I said, we need to bear in mind all the bus route and everything. I'm happy to take it with you, ward members, so we can talk about it and we can discuss it and see if you feel we want to proceed and to go whatever option. I'm happy to do that.
Yeah. Yes, please.
Right. Okay. So let's take that offline. And thank you very much. And Councillor Davis.
A quick final comment on cycle hangers, I'm sorry. It costs £75 a year for a space in a cycle hanger. So if the council's getting that money, they must pay for themselves quite quickly. In the interest of fairness, a family of 4, that would be £300 a year just to keep your keep 4 bikes, whereas you can leave a car on the street for free. It just seems unfair to me.
Okay. Thank you, Chair. Can I answer that? It's not Kingston Council who make the money. We don't make the money. This is not us. There is a third party who maintain and receive this money in order to keep the hangar. We only put the hangar in, then after that there is a third party, and it is them who make the money out of it.
Thank you very much. I did not know that. And I think we need to tell people that really. But, okay, taking away the bit about the council, I still think my point about fairness is a fair point.
Okay, so that's good. You were going to add that to the LIP report that we about looking at additional cycle hangers. Yeah, that we've already.
But not the cost, because right, it's a different matter.
No, that's a different matter indeed. Okay, so right, Do we have any further comments? Councillor Hurler.
And just to say, I'm very pleased that we've got the school streets sort of in there.
Okay. Any further comments? No, I don't see any. Do we need to vote? Is this? I think we just need to vote to say send this report to agreed. So we're agreed. It's going to go to the Place Committee, right, for consideration. Brilliant. And we come on to item 10 on the agenda, the work programme. Do members have any comments on the work programme? Councillor Shopper.
Thank you, Chair. It's just a quick point of clarification on the work plan for the Berrylands Area Healthy Street Study. I've just noted it says the outcome of the drop-in sessions, but actually, although I acknowledge they were facilitated by Council Highways officers in terms of the letters that went out, Lib Dem councillors were involved in the sessions themselves. So I wanted just to clarify that we're noting outcome, but also where does the survey, the consultation findings of the survey feature? Is that not something that would be included in that? Thank you, Chair.
Yes, Eunice. Did you want to come back up?
Okay, the report will outline Let's Talk result, which it showed the survey. It shows the comment received with the people put in the box when we had this workshop, and all the comment being received by members as well and resident. And it shows as well a survey, not survey, that type of survey, another survey, which is traffic surveys, origin and destination surveys, and all of them will be shown on that plan, and we will be recommending option for consultation. Thank you.
Chairs, it was just a point of clarification. When you say the let's talk, that's the word that the resident would understand would be the questionnaire that the online questionnaire is the let's talk. Yeah, thank you, Chair.
Yeah, yes, it is. It will be about them and their suggestion as well.
Okay, well, thank you. There are no urgent items. Yes, I'm sorry, I just had a last-minute interjection here, but there are no urgent items. The meeting is closed at 13 minutes past 10. Thank you very much.